Crazy.
With less than 2 months left in the White House, the president has begun the long process of thanking those who have served him. Today, he said thanks to the White House Secret Service detail. The president always makes a little farewell speech, and he did so today, reminiscing about what happened with Agent Rufus Youngblood in Dallas 5 years ago yesterday.
I'll never forget that day in Dallas when great big husky roughneck from Georgia threw 185 pounds of human weight on me and said down, and there wasn't any place to go but down because he was on top of me. And his life was being offered to protect mine. A lot of things you've had to live through with me, and if I could rewrite them, I would change a lot of them because I have abused you and I have criticized you and I've been inconsiderate of you and all of those things that you know better than I do. And I spent more of my time telling you what you did wrong and what you've done right. But Lucy and Linda and Ms. Johnson remind me every day of how blessed you've been. As I stand here on this lawn this morning, I think about the sunsets and the sunrises that we've seen together in the hills of home.
That guy's got bullshit that don't quit. What a pathological liar. No, it's so funny. Imagine a car, and there's 4 people in the back seat, in a convertible, right?
Yeah.
Johnson's a big guy. You got Rafe Yarborough, the senator from Texas, and you got 2 wives, right? You got 4 people sitting knee to knee to knee, 4 across, right? Back seat of the car. He claims that Rufus Youngblood dove over the top onto him personally, covering his body, knocking him down to where no one knows, because unfortunately for Johnson, Yarborough was sitting next to him and said the entire thing is a crock of shit made up by LBJ. He didn't dive over the seat, and there was nowhere for him to even tilt over, Eric. If you can imagine what I'm trying to say is 4 people sitting leg to leg in the back seat of that convertible. But yeah, I guess he can't help himself.
Well, he got a story. He's going to stick with it. But
he's sticking with that story, yeah.
I hope everybody enjoys the intro from Tuesday.
That's the same intro, or
yeah, that's the one that wound up not happening. So
I was like,
you know what?
So you're
it's
showing
related.
It now.
It's related. It's still JFK.
Eric's going to show the Stooges outtakes in about 20 minutes.
Well, right in the middle of the show. It'll be during the question. That'll be ideal. Or maybe it'll be if somebody asks a question, it's not a super chat. I love this. We will try to get to as many questions as possible. Obviously, super chat's going to get some priority. Cash does help a little bit, but we're going to Rumble. We're going here. We're going to locals. Locals definitely gets priority.
Is that true?
Yeah, I try to focus more on locals than anywhere because that's people who support us all the time.
Okay,
and
I'm with you.
I think it's a kind of a cool way to go. There's some questions that went through today in the comments, but I can't get to the comments once I have the chat open on local. So this, hopefully you're watching. We're going to try and do it live because I never know how it's going to go and I can't get to everything. There just tends to be a lot of questions.
Oh, wow.
However,
this is the 3rd time we've done this.
Yes, it is.
It seems to be more questions every time we do one of these.
But we have more content in between. Right. So it's not like we're just, we'll do another Q&A 2 days now. More shows come out with a lot of information, like the Secret Service episodes, 2 of those. There's a lot of stuff that they can ask. And then people who didn't see the first or just discovering. And speaking of 3rd time, this is the 3rd time we have a sponsor.
What?
That's right.
Oh, the virtual porn network you're talking about. The
no.
the victims protection unit?
No.
Okay. Viruses protecting network against the viruses of the computer.
Not quite.
Okay.
Not
well,
quite.
we're getting somewhere. We're getting close.
Okay. ExpressVPN. And hopefully we'll maintain it. But
oh my, ExpressVPN. Okay.
Express.
Wait, is there a regular VPN that's not as fast as ExpressVPN, or is that one size?
All of them are pretty much not as fast. You know what? I'm glad you brought that up because CNET just declared them the best VPN of 2022.
As opposed to there's others.
There's dozens of VPN
companies.
I
didn't know. I had no idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
But no, it really does make a difference. And speed makes a difference too. You accidentally backed into it. But one of the factors of the VPN is because you're redirecting your traffic through a private network, there's a little bit of friction. There's other steps. But because they have a ton of servers, I believe it's 3,000 plus servers, CNET actually did the testing and they only saw a 2% loss of speed, which is really
very good.
So it's like, okay, you can lose 2% and be safe, or you can have 100% and be at risk. It's really a good call. Again, what does it do? It takes your IP address, it masks it so people can't find you.
Whoa.
And you come out the other side on the internet and they see wherever you are, and you can be literally anywhere in the world. So you can have fun with this. You can say, hey, you know what? I want to join the internet through Venezuela.
Okay.
And all of your packets will come through Venezuela. Maybe you prefer Cambodia, South Africa, Kenya, Israel, a lot of places. You can be hitting the internet at any point. And the advantage to that too is you can be watching.
Can you say that you're in a place like Venezuela?
Well, you can say anything you want. It is the internet. I mean,
right,
on the internet, nobody is your dog.
Would you're saying it and saying I'm at 318 West Bogota Road in Venezuela? I mean,
you could say that. I don't know if it would necessally hold up, but it would say, "Oh, your packets came from Venezuela."
No, I'm talking about for McGinnis too, The Reckoning, when he disappears again.
Well, there you go.
Can he use ExpressVPN to cover his trail?
Maybe he should. Maybe he should. Maybe he should find another country.
Right.
Or maybe he should be.
This one's about done with him. So.
I know. Maybe he should be in another country and sending his packets back out here through the U.S. and pretending he's here. Yeah. So anyway, on that note, thank you to ExpressVPN.
Thank you.
It really is a good product, very easy to use, and it does mean a lot that they're giving us a sponsorship.
I like that.
So yeah, Gavin McGinnis. I always love when we're concerned about somebody, you say something about somebody, and then you have to say, "Well, Owen Benjamin was right." That's a real treat. Thank you, Gavin. But I will say it. Owen Benjamin was right. He did say, and Gavin's just an asshole. So I'll leave it on that.
Douche of the year.
Douche of the year. I like that.
I don't know if that's an award, but he's.
Well, actually, is he going to be?
He's the Babe Ruth of douches.
Is he going to be Gavin Smollett or is he Jussie McGinnis?
I don't know.
Which is he?
I don't know, but he's dead to us. So.
Anyway, okay. But speaking of dead to the world, we're talking about the JFK assassination.
Okay.
Folks, if you, in the chat especially, and everywhere else, if you can say a Q, colon, or question, and then your question, please do that. And I will do my best to come up with the questions. I will start out with locals. Again, unstructured.locals.com. Anyone who wants to follow us for free, awesome. It's $5 a month if you want to participate, $50 a year. We really do appreciate it and always notify people on locals first. But I'm going to start with the locals question from Fibro Warrior. Whoa. What about Meatloaf's JFK story?
I don't know. He says he was one of the kids, a fat kid in the either in Fort Worth or in somewhere in the video footage. So did Bill Pullman also, I think, said he was there. Another Fort Worth resident. I mean, it's possible. I don't know what, just a guy in a crowd.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't disbelieve either one of them. I mean, somebody was there. I mean, if they would claim to have been at the parade, they're one of 100,000.
Okay. I'm going to bring this one up only to say it's not really on topic. Just so I can say this is a question that's not on topic, so we're only going to go with JFK. Thoughts on the weird scenes inside the canyon by David McGowan?
What's that, the Laurel Canyon book?
Yeah.
It's crock of shit. Absolutely meaningless.
All right. And where are we at? What about the phone call from California that occurred 15 minutes before the assassination that predicted it would happen?
That's kind of sketchy. I mean, people have looked into that. It really doesn't have much gravitas that I've ever seen.
Oh, okay. Meatloaf, I guess, is more. They're saying there's a photo of Meatloaf at Parkland.
That I've never seen. Well, there's some photo of him somewhere, in the course of the day. So unless maybe he drove to Parkland after the situation, because there was, there was kind of a memorial there once he, or a vigil, once he was brought in there. So the crowds did come to Parkland. I mean, is he from Dallas or something, or?
Yeah, I think it was local.
Right. I don't know what that has to do with anything, but
I don't know. Rolf Peterson's back.
Oh, welcome back.
And thank you for supporting the sponsor. He wants to know where to VPN for your pinups.
What's a pinup?
Like the girls on the planes, pinup girl.
Oh, where do I VPN for Grobage pinups? Thank you for your work. Okay.
Because he wants to make sure that his browsing is private while he's looking for your pinup.
Oh, I see. Okay.
All right.
The driver testify why? Yes. Again, somebody said it doesn't make sense. I was just saying what he said. What William Greer said that he did was that he kept the gear and low gear of the Lincoln when he was in motorcades, and then he had to shift into drive, and to do that, this is him. I mean, he said he hit the brake to switch into drive to get out of there. So he went from low speed to drive, and he hit the brake to do that. That's his claim.
Okay. It was an automatic?
It's an automatic, yeah. And it's got like the drive and then first and second. So you can jam it up into drive, but a lot of people do hit the brake to do that. I mean, I've done it both ways. It's not inconceivable. But then again, obviously there were taillights that a lot of people saw. So he did hit that brake. Maybe that's his rationalization for hitting the brake. But he said he was disoriented. I mean, he's made a lot of testimony. One was, this is all Warren Commission stuff by Greer. He said he was disoriented coming around the turn and looking at the overpass, feeling threatened by the overpass for the safety of JFK. This is actually this is his testimony.
I mean, okay.
And he got nervous and slowed down and felt there was a threat up ahead. I don't even know.
Technically, he was correct.
He was correct. He may have had an incredible premonition, or the shooting was about to start, so he was scared shitless.
Actually, that really does sound true.
Right. I mean, if you're the driver and you know something's coming,
Actually, you know what? I'll have to see if we can get a hold of the testimony, or if you can point me in the right direction. Maybe I should do some statement analysis of the people.
Well, yeah, just
that's
look up
interesting.
Warren Commission testimony, William Greer. I mean, I'm pretty close to paraphrasing it a little bit, but that's pretty close to. I remember reading it a couple of weeks ago, and just crazy testimony. I mean, Kellerman, who's his sidekick over there, who was in charge, sitting next to him, he said JFK said all kinds of things that nobody else heard. I mean, Kellerman's all over the map. Kellerman later said the bullets were raining down on the limo. He wasn't wrong about that either, Kellerman. He also
well, that's a funny thing about statement analysis, because it's really a bitch to lie.
Right.
And so by saying I was slowing down because I felt like an attack was imminent, or I was concerned, he could have been giving up right there the information.
Right. Well, Kellerman said there was a conspiracy afterwards to kill the president. So he also said there were multiple gunmen. Kellerman, the Warren Commission did not want to hear that, but it's there if anybody wants to take a look at Kellerman's testimony. Kellerman was ostensibly in charge that day, technically in charge, although Emory Roberts had seniority and was really in charge. Kellerman's was first time being in charge of a motorcade. It didn't go well for Kellerman that day, and that went on his permanent record.
Wow. Okay, amazing. We got a $20 tip on locals.
Oh, weird.
So
Is that
highest
there was all
priority
kinds of thank yous in the comments, Eric. I noticed yesterday.
Oh, that's
people
awesome.
Sending the new
super thanks.
Super thanks. Yeah, super thanks.
Oh, that's really cool. That is really cool. And I knew that locals was doing some sort of tips because I see Barnes getting tips all the time, but this is the first one we've gotten. And thank you very much from Chasdom 1957.
Mm-hmm.
And this is kind of a statement, but anyway, please consider, since from the plotter's point of view, Oswald cannot be allowed to talk, his death must be assured ASAP after JFK is shot.
Okay.
Yet, since killing him at the Texas School Book Depository cannot be assured, it must be certain that he will leave the TSBD, thus requiring his complicity. So he misses his ride from the TSBD or later from his rooming house when DPD car toots horn. Perhaps then Oswald waves down Tippett, mistaking him for his DPT to ride. So I guess that's the question.
That's if you believe Oswald was a conspiratorial plotter to kill the president, which I don't, and most top researchers don't believe.
Okay, fair enough.
I mean, that you'd have to go down that rabbit hole that Oswald was in on it, and not a patsy or a semi-patsy or a doofus or whatever spin you want to put on it, instead of a guy going home because everybody was told to go home from work, and then he went to the movies.
Okay. Semadam's 73 on locals. If you were president, would you give extra consideration to who you chose as Treasury Secretary? Who was Secretary under Kennedy, and were they aware of the Secret Service concerns you raise?
I think Dillon, Dillon, was the Treasury Secretary. And as I said in a previous episode, Robert Kennedy, the Attorney General, put together legislation on the floor of the House, H.R. 2306 or something, to take away the protection of the president and put it by the Secret Service and put it into the hands of the Justice Department, meaning him, which is what he wanted to do. That bill was starting to circulate in the House in the 63, in the summer of 63, in the spring of 63. And one of the first things LBJ did when he became president was kill that bill. And not for just random reasons either, but the suspicions about the Secret Service were rampant in Bobby Kennedy's office. That's why he came up with that bill. He just didn't propose this bill for no reason. He wanted to take away control of protection of the president from the Secret Service. Now, the FBI was always trying to take away the Secret Service's protection of the president role. That had been going on for decades. What Hoover wanted was, he wanted to do it with the FBI. So Bobby Kennedy wanted to do that too, because he controlled the FBI at that point. So that was Kennedy's motivation. Hoover had been fighting with the Secret Service for decades about control of the White House detail. And, you know, they were legally obligated to do it, the Secret Service. But if Hoover had his druthers, the Secret Service would have just been dealing with counterfeiting and Treasury issues, which is what he wanted. Okay. Which doesn't, it's not insane. I mean, here they are dealing with counterfeiting and Treasury notes and things like that. And on the side, they're protecting the president of the United States.
I never understood that. I mean,
I never understood that. I mean, it's really crazy.
FBI makes sense, or
it
military.
Made total sense. And in fact, that's kind of why they kind of stovepipe each other and don't provide information to each other in this feud that they've been having. And also, they believe because of Dallas that the FBI would take them over. And they did not. They lied under oath repeatedly. And
I take it back. I said or military, but no, military would be a bad move because that lends credence to a possible coup. Easy.
That's right. Bobby had the right idea. Bobby wanted to have it controlled out of the, Justice Department.
Yeah, except we had to get rid of Hoover too.
No, but Hoover had a special phone on his desk that Bobby Kennedy installed, and he had brought Hoover to heel. As long as he was Attorney General, Hoover was not a threat to him. But the next guy, who was Attorney General, all bets are off.
Right. And then when everything went down too, Hoover threw the phone away. So.
That day, he took the phone, unplugged it, and there was never a phone again.
Okay, so this one is from Rumble. Jax, does Eric read from Rumble? Yes.
Yeah, we're reading from Rumble now, right?
Yeah, no, that's why I said that. Sigfall00, question. How many minutes between the time JFK was shot until the time Oswald was arrested in the theater?
It's an hour. 1 hour.
Wow, that's tight.
12:30 to 1:30.
And I got one more from Rumble. Warm Flash. Why did Curtis LeMay go to Wyerton, Ontario on November 22nd, 1963? And why did Clay Shaw and David Ferry visit Canada?
Oh, two separate questions, my friend. I don't know if that's allowed.
I don't know. Well, no, there's three. Where did they go and how often?
Wait a second. Let me just take the first one. He was on a camping trip, hunting, fishing, camping. Might have been Canada, might have been northern Wisconsin. Some debate as to where his hunting lodge cabin was of Curtis LeMay. Then he comes back to Bethesda. Now, the other question about Clay Shaw and Ferry was because of nickel and elements that were blocked from going into Louisiana from the Cuban embargo. And Ferry had flown Clay Shaw a couple times to Toronto to set up a business to import nickel and some other elements from Cuba to Toronto that would then be relocated or shipped to Louisiana for different industries in Louisiana because of the Cuban embargo, if that helps that question. Now, what was the third one? I'm sorry, I didn't hear the third question.
Where did they go or what, or how often? I got to find it again. I've moved on to other questions.
Where did they go? They went to Toronto.
Yeah, where did they go and how often?
I think there was 2 or 3 trips that I remember. And again, this was about importing minerals from Cuba and setting up an import-export, which is kind of what he did with the Trade Mart anyway. That was kind of his legitimate gig. So I think this was about circumventing the Cuban embargo on imports.
Okay. Question from locals, KJed. Parade route changes into Dealey Plaza with a hard left onto Elm. Please go over the details about decision making.
Ha! That would take days, my friend. That was such skullduggery involved. Okay, so they're supposed to go straight down Main onto the Stemmons Freeway, but that is a last-minute thing because it's originally supposed to be the Women's Building on Fair Park, in Fair Park, which is a neighborhood, which is, I check me on this if you live in Dallas. I think it might be southeast of the Trade Mart and southeast of the Texas School Book Depository, but you have to check it on that. But the original spot, like we said last week, was the Women's Building because it was so easily protected, had much more space for fundraising, and you could drive the car into it. The skullduggery involves, like I said, John Connolly battling Bruno, the advance man, who wrote a book called Advanced Man, which is where this story comes from, and some other sources about switching it to the Trade Mart. Even the Secret Service had signed off on the Women's Building. So this was not crazy. I mean, Forrest Sorrells, who was the local Dallas Secret Service agent, he had agreed, so did Bruno, so did others, about the Women's Building. And at one point, I think it's Kenny O'Donnell calls up Bruno and said, we're going to have to give up this Women's Building because Connolly is a psycho and he won't stop about the Trade Mart. Now, as for the right-hand, left-hand turn, that was not revealed to even the Dallas police. Even the dry runs that they did with the Dallas police did not make that turn. So that was top secret. That whole dogleg thing was top secret. There was nobody there for the parade route. There was, the people that were stragglers from Maine. That was the end of the parade, because if you think about it, a couple of feet further, once they go under the underpass, the overpass, you can make a right on Industrial and go down there or get on the Stemmons Freeway that way. And then it's Trade Mart. So it's the end of the parade. But yeah, all the machinery involved in that skullduggery, like we said last week, every time someone died, they blamed that person for coming up with the dogleg turn in front of the school book depository. You know what I mean? No one would ever acknowledge in their testimony who did that. But you could trace it back. The release was from Bill Moyers to the press. The press got it from Bill Moyers. And a lot of people believe that if Pierre Salinger had not been in the air to Hawaii, that he would have been in charge of the parade route like he usually was and never would have let this happen. So they had to get Pierre Salinger out of the country, which they did, along with the cabinet that was up in the air going to Honolulu. And somehow Bill Moyers, all of these people seem to be doing the bidding with some buffers of LBJ. Like he's got enough buffers. But if you trace it back, the people are people around LBJ doing this. And the parade route is part of that.
All right.
In my humble opinion.
Did JFK ever get with Nancy Pelosi? Please say no. I think she was a little young.
I don't think she was his type.
I think she was also the picture I saw. I think she was young too. Like
she was very young and mucho Catholico at that time, I think. But maybe
all right,
not so much.
Joan sings, "Not cool. You're blocking me on Twitter, Mark."
Sorry, bro. No, there's no law says you have to be in my Twitter feed. Sorry.
No, I think that's somebody who pegged me earlier. Why is I don't know.
I don't know.
Olivia Cat, good question. Why in the world did they continue to use the vehicle JFK was murdered in?
I think it was symbolic. I think LBJ wanted to use it as a symbol, as a souvenir. He had it obviously renovated immediately. They took the windshield out. They flew the thing to Detroit. There's testimony. You could see it in The Men Who Killed Kennedy. One of the people who worked on the windshield removal and the replacement of the windshield. And then it's cleaned out immediately by Greer in Parkland with soap and water. And then everything is renovated. It's really crazy, that they would use this same limo. The only thing I could ever think of, and it's macabre, is that he's using it as a souvenir, LBJ. I mean, he takes it to Australia in that thing we showed last week where they're covered with paint, red paint as blood. I mean,
I guess the only steel man argument I could come up with if I was thinking about it was be the whole, no, I'm using that same car because I'm going to show that nobody is going to stop the president or, some line like that.
But, I mean, they didn't say that. I mean, it's not like they had a shortage of cars. This was personally, the colors of it was selected by Jack Kennedy. The undercarriage was built for him. I mean, it was heavier. It had bulletproof underneath. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's a conversation on the LBJ tapes with Hoover where he asks Hoover if he should have a bulletproof car himself, LBJ. And Hoover says, "Oh yeah, you should have a bulletproof car." And he goes, "Do you have one?" He goes, "Oh yeah, I got one." And so LBJ goes, "Well, I think I should have one too." He goes, "Oh yeah, definitely." And so that's on the tapes when this is the next day.
Oh, God.
LBJ is saying I needed bulletproof car for myself,
Well, while you're on that, Jeff Valentine said, "Can Mark give us a come on, Bobby?"
Come on, Bobby. Come on. Come on, Bobby.
Okay. Well, this is very timely. Right. Arlene Armstrong, of all the presidents during the Queen of England's reign, why was LBJ the only one she didn't meet?
Well, I think you're answering your own question. This was
very interesting.
Very interesting. Yep.
Because he was there long enough. He finished one term and he won a term on his own. So,
right. Apparently, what I realized was the plot could not go into effect until after January 20th of 1963. Otherwise, he wouldn't legally be able to run again. I did not realize that.
You mean the same thing I was talking about with a certain vice president now, that I'm very sure that Biden, no matter what happens, will be president until after January 20th. But
it's the same legal thing, and the plot doesn't get going until February, March, April, then starts cooking. I think because of that.
All right. Any validity to the George Bush phone call?
The George Bush phone call to who?
Yeah, I guess I
mean, he was a CIA. He was a CIA asset, like a CIA guy in training. He filed a report about a guy who was bad mouthing JFK, threatening to kill him out of Houston. That's a separate document. He's not standing in front of the Texas School Book Depository, despite what people think. And he later becomes the head of the CIA. I mean, it's not a mystery that he's involved with the CIA, So, but to link him to this, I mean, the real link is this Jack Alston Crichton, who I mentioned last week, who we're going to do an episode on, because Crichton is the guy who creates the 488th Military Intelligence Detachment and is really close to George Bush. And I didn't realize ran for governor against John Connally on the Republican ticket and hated John Connally. So maybe he didn't mind Connally getting shot in that limousine. You know what I mean? And his two guys, Crichton's two guys, Lumpkin and Whitmire, are in the lead car. Nobody, like I said last week, nobody's explained why Whitmire and Lumpkin are in that car. And nobody ever mentions that they're in the car, which means my red flags go up. What are you worried about them being in the car for? Why aren't you mentioning it that there's only 4 people when there's 6?
And now you're going,
interesting. And they report to Crichton. Now, Crichton was a CEO of a lot of oil companies. He was a huge 8 guy. He was a huge guy with D.H. Byrd and Hunt. He was one of these guys and very close to George Bush. And no one looks at this guy. You got to look at the guys that nobody mentions. And now I'm getting into this guy, Crichton. I just bought his book. Apparently wrote a book about the campaign. I didn't even know this. I had to buy it from England. Sometimes these books are just in England, on Amazon.
By the way, that's another reason to get VPNs, not for books necessarily, but for documentaries and shows that might only be in England or Australia.
Okay. All right.
Just
you
a
sold me.
quick note on that. Also from locals, a lot going on in locals and a lot of tips here. Very amazing.
Interesting.
Philip Smith Books. Question. What are
that's the guy's name or that's a company?
That is the username.
Oh, okay. Right.
What are plausibly considered JFK's last words? I remember that Mrs. Connally is supposed to have said, "You can't say Texas doesn't love you" to JFK right before the...
Right. That's what I was saying about Kellerman. Kellerman says, oh my God, I've been shot. And then later on, he claims that JFK says, "Get me to a hospital immediately." Now, no one's heard this. Jackie didn't hear this. Connally didn't hear it. Only Kellerman hears this, which is hard because JFK's got a bullet in his throat.
Yeah.
Right. So according to Jackie, he never said anything.
Well, and his head was... It's hard to talk with the head injury, too.
No, right. But I'm saying he didn't say anything with the bullet in the throat before that either. Like, oh, my God, I've been hit. Did not happen either, despite what Kellerman says.
Yeah, it's pretty unlikely.
You have to wonder why Kellerman would say all this crap. It's really bizarre. And again, if you look at his Warren Commission testimony, you'll see what I'm saying is true about him saying it. I don't know why he would bother saying it. It's absurd and it's insane. It makes him look insane. But maybe he was insane. Maybe he lost his mind.
It could be.
There's 2 theories. Because they did this thing with the drinking in March of 1963 when they went to Chicago. They went down a Rush Street and they drank till 6 a.m. The Secret Service agents. And again, there was a plot in Chicago. Months later. Some people think that maybe they were aware of the plot and they just said, we're just going to drink into a stupor because obviously the shit's going to hit the fan. Or they're just a bunch of good old boys who like to drink and they don't give a shit. So it's one or the other. You know what I mean? Like there's some theory that they just said, screw it. Let's just get shit faced. This is going to get ugly today, boys.
Or it's both.
Or both. Yeah.
I wouldn't rule it out. I mean,
yeah.
Let me see. Also from locals, Rev. Dr. Graves. What does Mark think of Douglas Horne's 5 volumes on the ARRB?
I have them here. I have them all. They're great. Yeah, recommended. Yeah, and I don't know how long they're going to be around. They're paperback, but I mean they're oversized paperback. And to be honest, I got them through the PayPal JFK Book Fund. And that, like I just got this one, and I really I just got this today, which I can't wait to read. This is the Lone Star Speaks Untold Texas Stories about the JFK assassination from just civilians, individual civilians. Somebody recommended it on Locals, and the PayPal book fund for JFK Books supplied that, as it did the Doug.
Are you at 300 now?
No, I'm not. I think I'm like at 280 or something, 283.
Okay, we're gonna have to let us know when you hit the 300 count.
Right.
Get Mark to 300 and beyond.
Anyway, yeah, those books are invaluable. The Assassinations Record Review Board, because that's 1996. It's almost contemporary times. You know what I mean? Like it's almost now that would, you know, because the House Assassination Committee stuff is 1978, and obviously the Warren Commission was 1964. So the JFK Records Act comes out in 1991 because of Oliver Stone's film. That creates the law itself that releases the records that we're still going through to this day, thanks to Oliver Stone. So anyone who thinks that he hasn't done anything, the JFK Records Act is because of his film. Now, there's not going to be a Biden Records Act because of that Hunter Biden Jr. film. I can guarantee you that. That's not going to happen.
You're going to poke that bear. God.
It's, yeah, dude, I had to watch that last night. And you know what's so funny? The system worked. I paid for it on Locals using those coins, Eric.
Yeah.
It was shocking. I pushed a button. Unfortunately, I had the coins. I don't know. It says you want to use the coins. So I pushed a button and it worked. The film was $21. I just have to emphasize that. A complete grifting cash grab, but the system itself worked technically. You know what I mean? That was the good news. Bad news is the movie blew, but the good news was that the system worked of launching it online. So it's good news, bad news.
All right. Okay, from I don't know if it's Bassy or Basque. It's BASCE. Sent a $15 tip on Locals.
Wow.
Wants to know, what about the newspaper account in Australia naming Oswald the assassin before it was published or announced there?
Well, it was in New Zealand, and Fletcher Prouty talks about that, how he was sent there to get him out of the way of the Pentagon. He was a liaison between the Pentagon and the CIA. Fletcher Prouty was a colonel, and he later wrote the book Secret Team, which I recommend. And he said he opened up the paper that day, a couple hours after the assassination, and the paper obviously had to be printed before that, you know, in New Zealand. And there was a whole bio and a picture of Oswald in Moscow with a tie, the suit and tie picture of him with his whole entire bio. So to him, as a special ops guy, as an intelligence guy, he said that this was, you know, like ready to go. Yeah, ready to go. Yeah. You know, it's like certain obituaries, in case people don't know about obituaries, of famous people, they're written way in advance, so you could just push the button. Like the Queen's obituary.
Like the Queen's obituary has probably been written for 20 years.
Well, you have to update. Yeah. You do have to update it. But,
sure,
what I'm saying is it's not like they start typing the obituary when there's the death is announced, is all I'm saying.
Yeah, even though on that note, by the way, apparently she died about 4 hours before it was announced. So
okay,
interesting. So they did have time, I guess, technically to get that worked out. Jeff SK on Locals. Do you think it's possible that more shots are fired than just the 3 or 4 known shots? Can't remember the official total. Maybe some hit the car and we just can't tell from the low res footage.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Like we talked about with these guys off camera, the guys who are the suppressor experts who've reached out to me about half loads and noise reduction and velocity reduction and whether or not there's aim reduction. But if you put suppressors on it, it could have been 8 guns for all we know. I mean, there's shrapnel all in the limousine. They were finding shrapnel for a couple of days in the limo. You've got the dent on the upper metal frame above the windshield. That's a dent that came from behind, and that dented the upper frame above the windshield. Then you've got the shot through the windshield coming this way, beveled inward, that hits him in the throat, I believe. So, yeah, I mean, it could have. You've got Weatherford up on the criminal courts building roof by his own admission with his sniper rifle, and one of his men grabbed the barrel and it was hot. You got that testimony by one of the sheriff's deputies. The Dow Tex building, the British Enfield, the 303 that was found on the roof of the Texas School Book Depository, brought down the fire escape, filmed by WFAA, the footage seized by the Secret Service, but seen by many people, including moi, who's seen that footage. The British Enfield that was seized from Buell Wesley Frazier in his house. It's Gunzarama, my friend. Gunzarama. So who knows how many guns and bullets there were.
All right. From Tarkina 53, I think that's some of our friends in Australia or Indonesia. I don't remember. Can you comment on Dorothy Kilgallen?
Yeah, I'll do it again for the 500th time.
And they said, just kidding.
Oh,
covered it before. And it was a $10 tip. So
thank you. That's funny. I would have, I don't care, but I mean, at some point, you got to stop the madness with this broad. But she was on What's My Line, so
she was. Okay, Brian Marshak here. Question: the first throat shot, came from overpass and went through the window and past two Secret Service guys and the Connollys and hit JFK. Why didn't any of the four-mentioned react? It's bullets fast. That would be my answer.
Greer turns around twice, and Kellerman turns around, and it's got a silencer on it, and he's not saying anything. And you're driving
even without a silencer. Okay, I've been in the military and there's the bullet will hit before you hear the sound.
Yeah.
Well, actually, in this case, it's subsonic rounds, but the
subsonic rounds, right.
But yeah, it's gone before you even know what happened.
You see in the film, Greer turns and looks at him twice. I mean, how many more times is Greer going to look at him? And then Kellerman turns around and looks at him. And then a guy named Connolly turns around and looks at him. So people are looking. And then you could see Jackie leans over and she's concerned. Just the throat shot I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Shot. So, I mean, people were obviously seeing that because he puts his hands up to his throat and he leans over.
All right. Pete Zah here. Dan Modea controlled opposition?
Absolutely. Paid off through book two. That's absolutely true. I don't know about No One Ever Reads, but the fact of the matter is Moldea wrote that book about the RFK conspiracy, and at the very end says everything I wrote in the other 15 chapters in the front of this book is wrong. And at the end of the book, he decides that there is no conspiracy in the RFK case. And at that point, he begins to realize that he needs the LAPD. And when he realizes he needs the LAPD to do his next book, he changes that book. And even his publishers said, "What are you, insane? I gave you an advance to do a book on a conspiracy to kill RFK. And you're changing the last chapter saying all this stuff is bullshit." And Moldea says, yeah, it's all bullshit. I made it all up. And he's got a whole book about all the nuances of the conspiracy for the RFK. Last chapter says it's not a conspiracy. Okay. So he needs LAPD, which is why he does this, because his next book is about a guy who kills someone, right? And that book advance was more than the RFK advance. And that murder involved a guy named O.J. Simpson.
Oh, God.
Right. So that's why Moldea throws the book under the bus. Moldea then becomes the handler for Thane Eugene Caesar, as even Bobby Kennedy realized, which we all knew for years. But Bobby Kennedy even tried to negotiate with Moldea, who's just a journalist who lives in D.C., why you have to negotiate with Dan Moldea and pay him $25,000 so you can interview Thane Eugene Caesar is, of course, bizarre. And he was the godfather to Thane Eugene Caesar's children and the gatekeeper, obviously. And he wrote some mob books on top of that. But I think he's best known for being the handler for Thane Eugene Caesar. In fact, announcing his death, last year when he died in the Philippines.
Wow. Amazing. Yeah. What does Mark know about Dr. Feelgood?
Which Dr. Feelgood is that?
I think that's the one who supplied JFK with a bunch of meds because of his, I forgot his disease. It's not Atkins. It's some Addison's disease.
Addison's disease, yeah. Yeah.
Wasn't he on a lot of medication and everything else? And Dr. Drew talks about it all the time, that he was so doped to the gills that I don't know.
To me, the proof of the pudding is, did anyone see him high? Did anybody see him slur his words? Did anybody see him fall down? Did anybody see him do anything? Because we saw George Bush Jr. choke on a pretzel. We saw Poppy Bush at 5 o'clock would lock the door to the Oval Office and begin drinking martinis with his wife, both of them alcoholics. George Bush Jr. an admitted alcoholic. There are things that are signs that do not exist with JFK. I mean, they don't operate in a vacuum. You know, there's people who see what they do. LBJ drank 2 quarts of Dewar's scotch every night and then would run around the White House yelling the N-word, drunk out of his mind. So we know that LBJ was an alcoholic. We know that people saw him do things in the White House drunk out of his mind. We know that Poppy Bush and his wife, you know, at 5 o'clock, that was the end of the workday, and the martinis started to flow. Nixon at the end combined alcohol and pills, according to people around Nixon at that time. So where is JFK getting high? Where is he doing these things? There's no record of anybody ever saying that or seeing it.
That's true. They say womanized.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's true. They say he womanized like crazy. But
right. Okay. But that's true. That's true.
So,
but I mean,
that's a point. I'm just saying. So it's not like all foibles were hidden somewhere out there.
No. They saw these foibles. And I mean, look, the LBJ did those foibles too. He had the buzzer system installed, LBJ, because he had been caught by Lady Bird, you know, walking in on him in his alcove. So the Secret Service installed a buzzer system that when she left her residence, they hit the buzzer and it went up to the Oval Office, you know, advising him that she was on the move, whatever her code name was. But obviously Clinton had a few things going on up there too, you know, in that Oval Office that people saw, you know, that people did. But there is no record, you know, there's scuttlebutt about JFK doing Leary acid with Mary Pinchot Meyer, you know, or smoking weed with her or whatever it was. Okay. You know, maybe he did. I don't really know. That's, you know, that's the acid story, you know, is rather vague. But again, nobody saw him high on methadone or injected by a Dr. Feelgood. He had to do in fact, the Addison's disease medication, just you want to know the facts, his father had put this all over the country in safety deposit boxes and accessible places in case he had an attack on it, and they had access to it all over the country, wherever he was.
Makes perfect sense. Kelly Mackey, did Jackie really grieve? And what happened to her after that and until her death? Well, she
had an affair with Robert Kennedy that was seen by everybody. She started screwing Robert Kennedy, and they had a pretty long love affair for over a year. Interestingly enough.
Did a casket go on Air Force One in Dallas, but a body bag come off in Washington?
Absolutely not. The casket went on. There's no body bag. All of these bodies came from the Bethesda Medical School. They didn't need to fly a body. You're going to a medical school, which is tons and tons of bodies, tons and tons of brains. And, you know, they did bring them around, absolutely. But they were not coming from Dallas. They were coming from the medical school. You know what I mean?
Tippett came too, right?
Tippett did not come on that plane. He went to Parkland Hospital, and he was expired, and then he was did not get on a plane, Tippett.
Okay. Well, I didn't say he got on his own.
Oh, no. There was no. There is what David Lifton is saying is crazy, because they don't need the bodies. They've got 1 million bodies in this medical college. They have brains and formaldehyde that the orderlies claimed were already firm brains. I mean, the scandal is really that they're using these bodies and brains from the College of Bethesda, which is why they did the autopsy at Bethesda. They didn't need to fly additional bodies with them out of Dallas. They had bodies there, and they did bring them around, and people did see these body bags because they were bringing them around from the school.
All right. How many books have you read about JFK and the deep state from Glasgow, Bonnie, Scotland?
The books are from there, or this guy's from there?
Feds are watching. Could be. He's paying in pounds. So I'm wondering if he's saying how many books
have you read about JFK and the deep state from Glasgow, Scotland?
Okay. Yeah, I'm guessing.
I don't know if
feds are well, okay, maybe he's saying he's from there.
Right,
he's asking how many books you've read.
Well, there's a couple of them. There's Newman's book, JFK and the CIA. There's about 3 or 4 of them that are specifically dealing with that.
And thanks for the second super.
Thank you. There's a few books. The best one is Professor John Newman's book, JFK and the CIA. Just to answer that question as best I can, that would be the best one because that's got documents in it, and it's, I think, from about 1999.
All right. Going back to locals. Mark, if you had to choose 2 shooters.
2 of the best shooters? Or
I don't know, gun to your head, pun
I'm going to go with
intended.
Shooter Jennings, Waylon Jennings' son. And what's the other one now?
I don't know. He said, my guesses are Lawrence Howard and Hermanio Diaz Garcia. Shooters were almost 100% Cuban exiles or soldiers of fortune involved in the exile movement, in my opinion. Okay, so
I would believe that this is of such importance, this assassination, that I wouldn't farm it out to an island nation of embittered exiles to count on. I would think that the importance of this would lend itself more to military people that we know and we can trust to do the job, as opposed to getting people from France, getting people from Cuba, getting people from Spain. I wouldn't trust them in a million years to do this type of thing. Howard and those cats, they were rough guys. I mean, they're not the guys that you would want in this situation because it's a military operation. And I think they took this more seriously than to have these, not that these guys were not involved in plots. I think they were. I think Howard was involved in some side plots, and I think the Cubans definitely were. But what I think the proof is in the pudding is military here. I think the military did this, and that's why people like Curtis LeMay and Galloway and Berkeley were in full uniform in that gallery in the Bethesda Naval Hospital in that autopsy room. Not because Lawrence Howard got off a good shot. I don't think that's what happened.
Okay, back to locals. This is an interesting question because I think the answer's kind of obvious in itself, but Chase Dome 1957. Mark, as a follow-up to my earlier tip comment, if Oswald was not involved, then why did Ruby need to silence him?
Because he was about to, okay.
He was going to say he was a patsy, and how this is
okay. But let me be more specific. I mean, he tries.
There's more to it. There's more to it. He wrote more, so let me.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay, then. Why did Ruby need to silence him? Your reasoning in answering my first question only follows if Ruby really was just another lone nut, in that if Oswald were not involved, why silence him?
I don't understand that question. Ruby was paid $50,000 to do the hit. We know that because he went to the bank. We know that he signed over the power of attorney to his lawyer. We know that he owed $350,000 to the IRS. He installed a bank in his a safe, in his office and bolted it to the ground to put the $50,000 into the safe. So that was the hit. On Friday night, he calls up and he goes over there Friday night. He's trying to kill him Friday night. Saturday night, he goes over to the police station again, trying to find an angle. He's packing his piece. He's looking for an opening on Saturday night. On Sunday, he calls up and he says that Oswald's going to be killed because he's getting nervous. Ruby is doing so much dexedrine at this point that he's getting the jitters, but he can't get out of it because he's already been paid the $50,000. So he has to finish the job on Sunday, which he does. When the transfer is happening, which most people wanted the transfer to be at night. But the promise to the media was that once Oswald was transferred, they would have a 1 hour plus free-ranging press conference with Oswald answering all Q&As, not unlike this press conference we're doing now, where any
we're safer
because he'd been perp walked. He'd been perp walked a couple of times, and it ended up in chaos. So the Dallas police and the people in charge said, we're going to have a full press conference on Monday morning. That was the goal. That's why Ruby only had till Sunday night to finish this job. He tried to do it on Friday. He angled to do it on Saturday. He pulled it off on Sunday. And the reality of it is, having a 1-hour free-ranging press conference with Lee Harvey Oswald could not have been allowed to happen, because he would have protested every step of the way, as he had been when doing these various perp walks that they danced him out for.
All right. USSR shopping cart in our locals. Mark, how much do you think it would cost to do a basic but good drama movie based on one of your LBJ or JFK scripts?
Well, okay, so the LBJ thing is a miniseries. That's a 5-part miniseries. The Oswald thing is a miniseries. Also, that's 10 hours. So it varies. Obviously, these period pieces are expensive. The RFK script is a single feature script by itself. So probably the cheapest one is RFK, which could probably be done, but it's a period piece. It's between $5 and $7 million, in my humble opinion. It's a period piece, but most of it's indoors. So that saves you a lot of money. It's mostly, if you do a period piece and there are not many car chases and explosions and outdoor stuff, you can really bottle the cost by set design internally, and you're just dealing with costuming at that point.
All right. And
also, just to answer the thing about the Oswald one, Netflix found it to be too expensive to do at the time when Oliver and I went to talk to Mr. Avant, the husband of Nicole Avant, who runs Netflix.
All right, cool. Also from USSR shopping cart on locals, Eric and Mark, have either of you toured Cuba? I know Hunley was there on duty.
No, I've never been there. I've been to the Dominican a lot. I've been to Puerto Rico a number of times, and Jamaica, obviously, not Jamaica, the Bahamas, St. Thomas. I've been to a lot. St. Croix. I lived in St. Thomas for over a year, but never Cuba. It's hard to get there from New York. You have to really go to Mexico. I don't know how you got there, but you were in the military.
Yeah, I got there on a plane.
You got there by signing a contract. But you have to go to Mexico, I think, even, or I've had friends.
Canada.
Montreal. I had a girlfriend who was from Montreal, and she went from Montreal. Yeah. A lot of people went from Montreal back in the 90s.
Yeah, no, I've only been to Guantanamo Bay, not to Cuba proper.
Right.
So, all right. Courier. Here because of Evan Barnes.
Woohoo!
If I get on some list as a result, it's their fault.
Hey, if I'm on the list, Barnes is on the list. So,
Mark and Eric, if those are your real names, any untold Canadians like me should know. Yeah, we're looking for the Canada's untold stories. We're looking for Australia's untold stories. Somebody get it going.
Oh yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of Canadian untold stories. There's the doctor who was operating out of was doing the mind control MK Ultra experiments up there.
Oh yeah,
CIA.
That ties with us. There's actually a podcast series that goes a lot into him.
Right.
I don't remember it offhand, but look up MK Ultra podcast and what's the name of that school?
I think we touched on Abby when Abby Hoffman was on the run. He hit out in Montreal. The QLF hit him out.
The Lincoln assassination.
The Lincoln assassination. We touched on it with Lincoln. Abby was hiding out in a dorm at McGill, and then Viva went to McGill. So Abby became Viva because Viva went to McGill, and now he's become Abby.
Yeah, he's reincarnated after a fashion. No, I think it is McGill tied to MK Ultra, as a matter of fact, on that podcast. Just Me, $49.99. Thank you.
Wow.
I can remember the Angora Mafia driving around the hill country, get names off of tombstones for LBJ.
That's a good one.
Oh, wow. You were there.
Wow, that's wonderful.
Sitting in a truck bed with the other kids while our grandfathers were writing down names.
Wow.
Wow, that is wild.
That's wild, man. Wow.
So
great.
You were some of those landslide votes.
Wow, the landslide Linden voters. I like when they commit suicide with rifles down there and they shoot themselves multiple times and then the judge says it's a suicide.
Yeah, it's like the Elliott Smith methodology.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I mean, they play for keeps down there politically. That's why I want to look at Crichton and his relationship to John Connolly. We're going to do an episode on both of them at one point. But they seem to be running against each other for governor. So I wonder. This was when Bush was running for the Senate, George Bush, the elder. So this is a Republican Democratic battle for control of Texas at that time, because you still had conservative Democrats like Connolly, which led to the feud of why Connolly was sitting in the limo.
Okay, this is just rude. Alec Baldwin can play LBJ.
Well, Woody Harrelson played him. He actually did a fairly good job. The script was terrible. It was written by a PA from Dancing with the Stars. They spent they spared no expense to buy a script from a PA who worked at Dancing with the Stars to do that. Rob Reiner, Woody Harrelson, LBJ, piece of crap. But Harrelson was pretty good. I got to give it to him.
Harrelson's a good actor.
Harrelson's great.
It's funny. I always mixed them up slightly. They remind me of each other. Right. But Woody Harrelson and Matthew McConaughey have always reminded me.
McConaughey was always a poor man's Woody Harrelson for years.
Yeah, but he came up.
Yeah, but that took like 20 years. He was not considered a serious actor for most of his career. Yeah, that's mostly lately. That's lately.
No, he got there. Rolf Peterson, been driving to Santa Carla most days, fixing up my brother's house as trustee of his estate. So missed the live stream. Still following, saving your shows to a hard drive for when it slows down. You know, it could slow down. Thanks for your work. Thank you, Rolf.
Yeah, Santa Clara could blow up from the grid being overused too.
All right. Well, Anita here. Good advice. I have coins on locals. What else can you buy with them? Well, Mark is not recommending that you spend coins.
I used $21 worth of coins to watch a movie.
You can tip us on locals. Yeah. Another thing you can do, I think you can gift memberships to other people on locals.
Whoa.
So that might be kind of a cool thing. If there's somebody you know who maybe wants to try it out, you can give them a month or two with whatever spare coins you have, and they'll appreciate it. I'm sure the creators will appreciate it. Let me see. Speaking of locals, I should go back to there. All right, USSR shopping cart. You're getting a lot in here. Would RFK Jr. ever do an interview with y'all? Well, they can't even get him on sidebar. So I don't know.
I know. He's so busy. It's just, I mean, it's really, a guilt trip to even take the guy away from what he's doing. I feel guilty about doing that. I mean, the guy has done some media. Obviously, we've seen him do media, and but he's busier than Barnes is, in terms of court cases and stuff.
Yeah, he's some of Barnes' busyness.
Yeah.
S. Laird 456 sent a $21 tip. Thank you.
Wow. Get the movie money back.
I'll match your $20 and raise you $1.
Wow. The movie was $21. I asked the producer as to why it was so expensive, and his answer was really erudite. And he said, because that's the price.
Well, there you go.
Right.
Is that who were you fighting with the producer on Twitter?
Yeah. No, I wasn't. He came at me last night.
And that was the producer? I didn't know it was the
producer. That was the Irish guy and his wife. He said, you obviously didn't see the film. And I said, sir, and I showed him my receipt. I put the receipt up on Twitter from locals.
Oh my.
He accused me of lying that I didn't see the film. And I said, I saw the film. I'm just appalled by the low quality of the film.
Wow.
You know what? I just want to say this. There was a film called Chappaquiddick a couple of years ago, a very good film about the situation with Teddy Kennedy and the bridge with Mary Jo Kopechne, and it was done by conservatives, and it was really well done. It was not over the top. It was not a comedy. It wasn't breaking the fourth wall. The film got great reviews. It was well done, and that's what should have been done with this Biden film. The idea, let me just tell you something, as a screenwriter, which I've been for a long time, I've worked with Mark Rydell, I've worked with Oliver Stone, I've worked with John Badham, I've worked with a lot of A-list directors, right? The idea of doing a political satire is the most difficult screenplay you could ever freaking write. That's why Pat Chayefsky is a god. That's why David Mamet is a god. The idea that this couple or these two screenwriters with very little experience would be able to make a political satire out of this thing minimizes. When you make a comedy out of a serious subject, it minimizes the gravitas of the subject. When you break the fourth wall, as this film does about 500 times, it minimizes what you're trying to pull off. You're making a joke out of it. The entire first act of this film is Hunter Biden doing drugs and partying without dialogue. For the first entire act of the movie, totally salacious drug use with absolutely no purpose. And it's difficult to watch in this.
So what are they trying to do, Wolf of Wall Street or something?
No. Again, there was nothing funny about it. It was just nonstop partying and doing coke and drugs. And in this day and age, when 100,000 kids are dying from fentanyl overdoses in this country, it's a little hard to watch. I'm sorry. It's a little hard to watch. And I've done a lot of drugs in my life, and I'm pretty liberal about, that kind of thing. But this was so over the top. I mean, and look, we've gone through all kinds of drug films like Blow and everything else, but those were a long time ago. This is not Johnny Depp with Blow anymore. You know what I mean? And it was just hard to watch, Eric. It was just hard to watch. God bless them, and they want to make a conservative film. This did not help our cause. This gave the left a sword to stick in our back because the thing is so bad and over the top. They couldn't say a word about Chappaquiddick because it was so well done and so well acted. I recommend people who want to see a film this weekend, go rent Chappaquiddick and see a movie about Ted Kennedy killing a woman and how well that film is done compared to this. And that's all I'm going to say about it.
Okay, this kind of brings us back. Somebody brought this up, but you have a personal story about this.
Right.
They should have let Val Kilmer play.
Oh, yeah. Oh, Val would have been the man. I mean, Val went out of his way to hire a costumer and makeup people, brought them in, and became LBJ. There's some photos, I don't know if you still have them, that I
do. I'm looking for it.
Because I wanted to go with Val Kilmer for my project, and then he had the throat thing and, blah, blah, blah. But Val Kilmer would have killed as LBJ. I mean, he's an incredible, obviously an incredible talent, but a total perfectionist. The story that Oliver told me about him becoming Jim Morrison with the audio cassette tape, getting in Oliver's car, driving down Sunset Boulevard, and Val Kilmer asks Oliver Stone to tell him which of the following songs are Val Kilmer or which are Jim Morrison on the audio tape. And he puts it in. There's 8 songs on the audio tape. And Oliver starts saying, well, that's Morrison, that's you, that's Morrison. And he goes song by song, Kilmer. And at the end, Kilmer just laughs. And he says, what's so funny? He goes, I did all those songs. There was no Jim Morrison on that tape. And Oliver said, you got the part. And that's how he became Jim Morrison in The Doors. But he goes the extra mile trying to get this part that Woody Harrelson got from Rob Reiner. And I don't know how that's possible, but I think everybody's got a number to open a picture. The reason people are selected, by the way, folks, the banks have a number for each actor based on their box office. It's an algorithm that each A-list star has based on the number. So to raise money for a film, the bank will say you need a number of 250 of all the talent combined. This is inside baseball, but if you people want to know how movies are funded, the money comes based on the number that each person is assigned based. Oh yeah, this is great. Wow.
There's LBJ.
Right now, look at that. Do that a couple of times. People look how insane this is. There's Val. Look at Val. It's crazy, man. It's crazy.
What I love, you were speaking recently about the expense of films and makeup. Look at his hands.
Yeah.
That's what really does it for me, because his hands are identical.
Yeah.
It's got all the spots and everything. And I'm guessing that's some of that attention to detail you're talking about. That
well, I mean, look at his Mark Twain thing. If you ever get a chance to see the Val Kilmer documentary, it's absolutely a masterpiece. His voice is gone, but his son does the voiceover as him.
Oh, wow.
And then it shows a lot of the Mark Twain thing that he does where he becomes Mark Twain. It's worth the price of the documentary just to see him as Mark Twain within the doc, because it covers him in Tombstone and all those other films, including Top Gun. If you get a chance, it's still on Netflix. I really recommend you watch the Val Kilmer documentary. One of the great unheralded actors of our generation, our time.
Yeah, for sure. I remember him all the way back in Top Secret, though. So it is funny. Yeah. I mean, no, it's fun to look at young, when they're young in their first roles, whatever they are, and then who they become over time. It's pretty awesome. All right. So what do you say about the 7.65 Mauser?
An interesting weapon. I mean, it was a German Mauser on Walter Cronkite's news show for the first 2 nights. It was a German Mauser. It becomes a man like a Carcano the 3rd night of CBS Evening News. So it's a Mauser for a couple of days, and then it becomes the Carcano. So I don't know who was supposed to own the Mauser, but that guy got away with murder. You know what I mean? Whoever it was, the Mauser guy, because obviously Seymour Weitzman, who has a sporting goods store selling guns, he said, "How did you know it was a Mauser?" He goes, "Well, stamped on the side, it said Mauser." So I had a clue, and I run a gun store. So Weitzman had a gun store in Dallas that he knew what he was talking about, Seymour.
All right. Question, Diane Standish. I watched the Zapruder film in slow motion and can only see 2 shots. Did the film capture all 3? And I just didn't see it.
Well, you don't see the shot in the back because that's in the back of his shoulder. That goes into the shoulder almost simultaneously as the shot to the throat, and then you see the headshot. So you're seeing 2 shots out of 3 into his body. That's what you're seeing, because you're not seeing a shot that goes to the right shoulder that penetrates 3/4 of an inch. You're not seeing that. You're seeing the headshot. You're seeing the throat shot.
All right. Locals Otto M sent $5 asking plans for an episode on Dr. Max Jacobson, aka Dr. Feelgood.
Okay.
No, he's asking, are we going to do an episode on him?
No.
Okay.
I mean, there's just nothing there for me to do,
No, I mean, that's fine.
But maybe the one who was Elvis's doctor might be interesting. That guy is interesting.
Question, top secret route, but published in the paper.
Not really. I mean, it was the paper was printed the night before. It was in verbal description in print. There wasn't a map until the very last minute. And that was all of that was covered up. Keep in mind, the other routes were published weeks in advance in San Antonio, in Houston, in Fort Worth, in Tampa. Only this place is at the last minute. Only this one place.
All right. Let's see. And we're getting close on time. Are you familiar with Julian Reed's book, Aid to Governor Connolly?
I am not, but I do have the book on Connolly. Is that the same book? I would have to see the name of the book. I have one big giant book on Connolly, which I think is his autobiography. But now I'm going to get another one, obviously written by Crichton, about Connolly and him running for governor. And then you got Walker running for governor. Walker was running for governor against Connolly too, as a Democrat, to the right of Connolly, if that was humanly possible, because Connolly later becomes Secretary of the Treasury under Nixon. He switches parties, Connolly. That's how conservative Connolly gets.
Well, I mean, it's different back then, because back then in the South, especially in Texas, Southern Democrats is different than a lot of other Democrats.
Right, but I'm saying the whole motivation for putting Connolly in that seat was to try to keep the Democratic Conservative Party intact in Texas, which they eventually failed. But this is when it's starting to come apart, is what I mean. That's why JFK was adamant about having Connolly in there, not the liberal Yarborough. Yarborough did him no good sitting in that limo. JFK wanted Connolly because he's trying to keep the conservative and liberal elements of the Democratic Party in Texas intact. It eventually, of course, falls apart.
Okay. Chad Mills, picket fence headshot. The limo is curving away left with JFK's head turned to the left. Entrance is above his right eyebrow, exiting through the back of JFK's head. Is it more likely from South Knoll area? I'll leave that all.
No, I stood there. It was you're just looking right at his head. I mean, it's a chip shot. It's 105 feet, bro. I mean, my mother could have made this shot, and she never used a gun. No, it goes into his right temple and blows out the back of his head.
All right. Did JFK get killed over the fact that he made a pact with the Soviet leader to jointly go to the moon, and Deep State said no, we must kill him?
Well, I don't think it's about the moon, but it's about everything involved with the Soviet Union, the missile treaty, the Cuba, Bay of Pigs. I think it was a combo. I don't know which straw broke the back, but the moon thing, I don't think was part of it. I think the overall making treaties with the Soviets. Yeah, I think, and the obviously 263 National Security Action Memo 263, taking the troops out of the advisors out of Vietnam. But which one broke the back? I don't know. I mean, the not supplying air power for the Bay of air support for the Bay of Pigs. Is it the missile treaty with the Soviets? I think it's all of them together, basically, in a spirit
combination. Like you pissed me off again and again and again. And,
right. I mean, I don't know which one did them in, but I think if you added them all up, I think they had seen just about enough. And I think what they wanted was not to have him have a second term, because then they figured all bets were off. He could do whatever the hell he wants, and they wanted LBJ in there. And he did their bidding. He signed 273 within 48 hours, bringing troops into Vietnam.
All right.
I mean, the proof's in the pudding. I mean, you know.
Crichton related Michael Crichton?
No, not that I know of. Let me take that back. I don't think so.
Thank you, gentlemen. Miladiats. That makes me think of my wife, because she calls millennials millennials, but I won't go into that.
What's miladiats?
I don't know.
Oh, like some. Oh, okay.
Ever heard of the movie Umbrella Man? Abusive alcoholic becomes JFK investigator. Umbrella Man's widow convinces him he's wrong, so he gives up research, sobers up, etc. Deep state propaganda?
That I don't know. I know there's a short film called Umbrella Man by Errol Morris that came out in the late 90s with Josiah Thompson, who wrote 6 Seconds in Dallas, one of the original books on the JFK assassination. Josiah Thompson explains in this short film by Errol Morris, who of course did the Thin Blue Line and a bunch of other amazing Wormwood, the series I highly recommend, Wormwood on Netflix, one of the great CIA documentary series of all time. But they explored Umbrella Man. I don't know what this is, but they went into it, the two of them, in this little mini documentary by Errol Morris.
All right. Yeah, I'm starting to wrap up on the main questions, folks, just so you know. Any plans for Billy Soul's Estes show?
I think he's on the list. I think we've touched on him before. Yeah, I think we probably have to.
Is it going to be a full? Well, we were talking about combining a couple of these characters, but I didn't know. So,
I don't know. Yeah, Billy Saul Estes is on the cusp. He's right. He's on the cusp.
This is not related. What about a show about Wonderland Murders? Do you care about that one?
I mean, I drive by it all the time. I mean, the house is still. I live pretty close by the Wonderland house. I mean, that was the first time LAPD had videotaped a crime scene. They had pretty lumbersome video cameras, but it was the first crime scene they ever videotaped, by the way.
Oh, here we go. Meladians. Great job in Russian. Thank you.
Thank you. That's the Russian word of the day.
Donka, thank you in Russian, right. Or is it just? Oh well, here we go. Pasha coming through.
Oh, so, Pasha revealed.
And I would never get that from that writing. I don't read Cyrillic, but thank you.
Wow. I have a Cyrillic floor in the kitchen, but
nice. All right. Hey, here late. Sorry if this is asked, because I always fascinated with the story of Richard Case Nagel. Is there a resource I can go for a true
Bloody
story?
Treason by Noel Twyman covers it. The Man Who Knew Too Much covers it. I forget the author's name. The Man Who Knew Too Much. Name slips my mind, but the Nagel book, the Nagel story is in there, and it is it's either disinformation or it's true. It's hard to tell even to this day about Nagel. It could go either way.
All right. Okay, this is going to be the last question on this. It's from locals, Nikki F. Question. My brother and I have had an argument for 25 years about whether a person can use the term grassy knoll distinct from JFK. It started when he was describing his bike ride around a grassy knoll in Los Angeles. I maintain that one can't use that term in casual convo anymore, as its meaning has been changed by history. Who is right? Please help us, or he'll put it on my gravestone if I die first.
Well, there's other similar versions of this that you can look at and say the same thing is true. I mean, how do you say 9/11 with the date 9/11 without mentioning 9/11? I mean, there are some things like that in history.
Or 911, which is emergency, which you call on your phone.
But that's not 9/11. I mean, saying 9/11, the date, it only comes up with one thing, and that's Grassy Knoll. Similar to that,
there's another thing. Nate the lawyer, his birthday is 9/11.
Okay, well, it's a big day for Nate the lawyer. But the point of the matter, the point of the matter is, some of these things, due to language, are tied into the events that the Grassy Knoll is now not a Grassy Knoll anymore. Like it's linked to JFK. You could say picket fence. I mean, that's not going to happen. But you say Texas School Book Depository. It's obviously a building people worked in. But I got a better one for you: the Watergate. Watergate was a hotel. I mean, it still is a hotel. I mean, but Watergate,
that was so big that everything is a freaking gate, which drives me crazy.
Right, but I mean, if it happened in the Empire State Building, the scandal would be called Empire State Gate.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying everything's a gate.
No, without the gate.
Yeah.
I mean, you would have been using the Empire State Building, and people would go, "Isn't there an Empire State Building?" Nobody knows that there's a Watergate hotel. They don't. They just, it had offices in it and whatever, and different suites and stuff which they broke into, but they just think of Watergate as a thing. The Watergate Hotel. I mean, it's a real place.
Yeah. True. All right. From Zandanga. Thanks. Great info from you guys. Always. Thank you very much.
Zandanga.
And folks, we really do appreciate all the support, super chats, etc. Fortunately, miraculously, this episode has not turned yellow last time I checked.
Well, we didn't really say any weird things. We're just answering.
We're talking YouTube here. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows?
So, but it really helps out a lot. All the support we're getting. It's amazing seeing this local support. Wow. I heard about those tips. Now I see there's tips. It's kind of wild to see, and really big honor. And I deeply appreciate it. I appreciate anybody even just following us on Locals. It helps a lot. We're always at risk. You can follow us for free. You don't have to pay anything to follow. We put up a lot of stuff that's free. You can also read what other people are putting up and follow their articles and things like that. And if you like it, you can choose to support or not. But one big advantage to everyone following us on Locals is it gives us an opportunity, should everything go tits up on YouTube, that I can email all of you to say, hey, we're on Rumble now, or hey, we're over here now. I will never use your email address for anything other than that. But that
I'm on VPN, so I could be in Venezuela by then. So,
well, you never know from where we are emailing. Absolutely.
Right.
And if it's Mark, could be Venezuela, but he might get a little more exotic. I don't know.
Texas, could be Dallas, Texas.
Yeah, it could be. Could be Bailey's. We could do the John McAfee thing and be on the run. So anywhere's good. We also have support. Oswald is on the run.
There was a dog on the internet, on Twitter, that had a half black face and a half white face the other day. I was thinking about you. And then I was thinking about Frank Gorshin from Star Trek, who was half black and half white during the racial episode of Star Trek, where Frank Gorshin, the Riddler, was playing a character on Star Trek, was half black and half white.
So that's Oswald. Oswald, the diversity dog.
Oswald, the diversity dog, obviously is part white, part black.
And his sidekick.
The Grow Bear is obviously a white nationalist, but the reality, that's a cute little bear. I feel really comfortable looking at that bear.
Well, good news. A couple bears sold.
Right. I told you, Frog called me yesterday and started going over our episodes about Sonora House and correcting me.
Speaking of Frog, it's nowhere near as cool as Frog's, but we have a bucket hat too.
That's a great bucket hat.
Frog had that like giant.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it had the floppy hat. Yeah, it had the suede floppy hat, Frog. Yeah, we had a 2-hour conversation caught up. I haven't spoken to him in decades, but he was saying
I want to see if we can get Frog to do a
Frog's the
local
equivalent
Symbolism.
of Max Good. He's that outgoing. He'd be interviewing Max Good again.
I see.
Right.
Well, it would be a locals exclusive then.
Right.
Well, folks, it's been amazing. Tomorrow I will be doing a locals only stream that I do on Saturdays. And not sure what's next week, but I don't think it's going to be JFK. I think.
Oh no, yeah, we got to do something else.
Yeah, we'll go. We're going to the hopper. It'll be a surprise.
The hopper, my friends. We're going to see what's in the hopper.
Definitely, please consider subscribing while you're here. We're heading to 30,000.
What?
Climbing up. Now, keep in mind that
whoever gave me the money for this book on PayPal, thank you. That's all I can tell you. I'm going to read that all weekend, so that's good to go. And I'm reading a UFO book that somebody I won't name has just written, which will be hopefully published soon. An encyclopedia of UFOs, which is 450 pages long, but fascinating, absolutely fascinating. So I have a lot of.
That person won't punish you if you don't finish, will they?
Oh yeah, no, I want to finish it. I'm into it. Having experienced UFOs myself, which is an episode we did, I believe, with Sonora House, right?
Yes.
It's funny because Frog was at home when we got back. He said, I never heard about the Men in Black, but he was at Sonora House when we returned, rattled from seeing the UFO in Jewett that was later confirmed by John Keel 10 years later, the author of the Mothman Prophecies, who showed me exactly where I had encountered the UFO in Jewett, New York, upstate New York. So Frog and I were talking about the UFO yesterday. He was not with us, but he was there when we came back from the UFO encounter, which is an episode you all could watch down below, right?
Yes. So the whole back catalog, I believe, I think it was the Sonora House, but
yeah, I think
multiple episodes.
Right. And also, we had the books listed last week, right, for the Secret Service episode?
Yeah, on Tuesday.
Okay, so if anybody wants to know the sources of where I'm getting this stuff from, we put the books for that episode at least down below. We try to do it with each episode, not to sell the books, but just as source material. You know.
Good advice, Scott Cardinal. We should form a scandal naming panel so they are always something gate.
There were a lot of gates in the 90s and 80s, right?
And now everything's a freaking gate.
Even now?
No. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Stupid things
Iran, too. Was Iran-Contra a gate?
No, that was not a gate. This happened after it, but
right.
But now, no, it's Iran gate, Russia gate,
right?
On and on down the line. It's just disgusting. So,
right.
Next controversy though is the show is ending. We'll see you next week.
That's it.
That's it.
Okay. See you later, Hunley.